Hello. Welcome to Why Not Both, the podcast all about how our multiple passions and interests shape our identity and our lives. My name is Pam Schaefer, and I am a musician and therapist in Los Angeles, and I also happen to be your host. This podcast is produced by Laura Studeris, and for this season, we've partnered up with Under the Radar magazine. If you like what you hear, you can hang out with us on social media. We are on Twitter and Instagram at WNB the podcast. And if you really, really like what you hear, please support us on Patreon. We are under Why Not Both podcast. When you join our Patreon, you get a whole bunch of really cool behind the scenes stuff and you get to chat with us. And that's pretty awesome. Thank you so much for your support, and I hope you enjoy our interviews. This week, we were thrilled to welcome the absolutely fabulous Macy Rodman to the podcast. I hope you enjoy our interview. Welcome officially to Why Not Both.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. How have you been? I would ask so what do you do? Tell everybody. Now I'm like, how are you? The last year and a half has been kind of a whole thing.
It's wild. It's the summer has been such a roller coaster because it was after people started getting vaccinated, it was felt like a whole reopening, and it's kind of up in the air. People have a lot of feelings about that. But I'm rolling with it. Trying to.
We are all
How are you?
doing our best. I'm in the same boat where I was so excited that I was yay, my friends and I are vaxxed. We can start playing shows again and doing stuff. And then it was oh, well, I went out once. I was cool. I guess that was the last time until goodbye. See you in 2022.
When the whole thing started, my friend was telling me about this epidemiologist that was on Democracy Now, and I guess said at the very beginning she was 3 years. It'll take 3 years. Yep. And I was like, I don't want to believe that, but it's always been kind of in the back of my head. I'm well, maybe she clocked it.
That was, I remember starting to actually research the Spanish flu, which, by the way, why did we not learn about that in school more? Why did we not learn about the exact precedent of this situation?
Seriously.
And so same thing where I was reading about it, and it was they had a period of time where they were it's gone, let's party. And I was oh, I think this is our pandemic lull. I think this might kind of match up with that. And sadly, I was right, because I was telling people, I was yeah, because everyone was oh my gosh, it's kind of whiplash being back to normal. I was no, I don't think it's actually normal. And people are you're being so pessimistic. I was no, I'm just trying to have reasonable expectations. I'm just trying to
Yeah, it was a little too I think it'll be a slow kind of new normal vibe. I don't know. I don't anticipate it going straight back anytime soon, but that's okay. We've got some managing coping skills at this point that make it a little easier to visualize what that's going to look like.
Exactly. And also creating during this time, it's been kind of fascinating, because I think at first people were yep, don't know what to do. I'm just gonna sit here. I'm just gonna sit some more, gonna maybe stare into the distance.
Yeah, totally.
But now it's go on.
Oh, I threw out my neck the other day, and so I was in my room for a couple of days, and I was why does this feel eerily comforting now? Being trapped in a room or stuck in a room.
You're did I Stockholm syndrome myself? Do I like it?
Totally. I'm I have all my games that I can play. I have my little exercises that I can do.
You're oh, this is actually kind of
Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Because, yeah, like you're releasing music. Like people know, I think for a little while, people were like, I don't know if this is the time to release stuff. But it's like now we actually get to kind of share what we were working on, even though we are kind of back in like our little cubby holes. But it kind of gives an opportunity to be like, okay, well, how do you share it a different way? How, like,
I mean, yeah, necessity breeds invention, and it definitely did that. So it's like, I don't want to go back to Zoom shows or any of those things, but like maybe smaller shows with like supplement of like a live stream here and there, or like a recorded performance here and there, you know?
yes. Yes. I talked to a bunch of artists. I personally, I did the podcast mainly instead of like I did record music during this time, but I don't like live streaming. Like I feel like I'm doing like karaoke in my own home. I'm like this
Yeah.
like, so like if someone else does it, like I have seen a few really good live streams, but like I personally was like, oh, it's not for me. And I was like, oh, how else would I spread my music? And I was just like, oh, there could be like outdoor shows, or I like what you said about like almost like more frequent small shows as opposed to like one really big show.
Yes. Yeah. That seems like maybe less stressful for everyone involved, but you still kind of get to do the thing.
Yes. Yes. Because I don't know how you feel, but when you're performing, like so much of the performance is feeling the energy from the audience, and that's so hard to do on a live stream.
Totally. And I mean like I did one show that was like a packed room, like right when everything was reopening. It was for the single release from this album, and it was like beautiful, glorious, like having everyone in that room. It was like very magical. And it was like, oh yeah, this is actually not an element that can be erased completely. It's like if we can be diligent and like take our time with getting back to this like full-fledged thing, then I think that is very worth it, you know.
Yes. Yes. And I think it's a slow and steady. Like I feel like I don't know if this is like just an American culture thing, but we're kind of very all or nothing.
Completely, and it's frustrating because it's just like like that's not how this thing works. You know, as much as we
It's not.
wanted to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like the subtleties of like, here's where to wear your mask and here's when to wear it. It's like, do you have to wear it in your own home? No. Do you wear it when you go out
Yeah.
with a group of people? Yes. It's like,
Yeah. It's like, yeah, outside. Yeah, there's ways around it, and it's like it's actually not that hard, you know?
that's, I
Now
think,
that we're used to it.
yeah, I mean, we're all very adaptable. Like, I think, much like I was explaining why I was late for my own podcast, that I was like helping my friend's dog, much like within a day, she adapted to the fact that she was like, oh, yeah, you're a human that I like. Like, yay, we're great. It's the same thing.
Totally.
You just adapt to stuff. It's okay.
Yeah, I was above earlier today. I was listening to the episode of your podcast with Kathleen Hanna, and I was like, "Oh, that was like it," because that was like kind of right when it was all beginning, or like
Oh,
kind of the height
yeah.
of it all.
Yeah.
It was like it was like, oh, okay, we have like we've come a ways. It doesn't feel like that anymore. That's good.
Oh my God, that was such a fun interview. But like, that's so funny that that's the episode you listened to because she said to me, and I think I actually kept it in the episode that she's like, talking to you is like being on edibles. And I was like, thanks, I think. Like, I was like, wow, we're like, wow.
That's amazing.
I was like, no one's okay. It's great. We're all here together.
Totally. Everyone, a group insanity.
Yes. I think at the time, because like we were talking about, that's so interesting. That episode was such a fun one to record because that was right when we were like trying to figure out how to define like our identities when we weren't really being perceived. Because that's been a huge part of this experience is that so much of how we define ourselves is by the reflection that we get back from other people.
Yeah.
Like we're talking about, well, what do you do when you don't have that reflection anymore? You're just kind of like, oh, it's just me.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Um, yeah, it's such a trip. And like, I never realized how much of like interactions with strangers depend on your face and like, um, learning how to like get around that is its own thing, and like learning how to like not be not attempt to like let your whole social structure be like replaced with social media, because that is also a very dangerous game to try to
God.
play.
Oh my God. Yes. Like, yes. I was like, I have no more commentary.
Yeah, because it's tempting. It's like, oh, I get this like little boost of dopamine, but it's just like the rapid like rise and fall of like change of mood in that space is damaging.
Hard, and especially like you said, since like we don't have the other social outlets, and especially like as artists or anyone that's really producing anything that you want to share with others, you do of course want to be active on social so that you can be like, hey, here's what I'm working on, and you can look at what other people are working on, and like that's exciting. But then it's like a slippery slope where you're just like, I'm excited. It's like that Saved by the Bell, like I'm so excited, I'm so scared. Like,
Yeah, totally.
oh my God. And yeah, especially like, because that's all we have in some ways throughout the pandemic. That was all we had to go on socially, which was weird.
Yeah, super weird. Super weird. Like, um, and you could like see how other people were unraveling because of it also.
Back to the we're
Which
all
was
on
like,
hold camp.
yeah, it's like, oh, didn't know that about you. Okay.
Taking in that data. Okay. Adding it to the landscape. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And especially when that's your only feedback, like you said. And I think it's really true that there's no replacement for like the energy you get back from an audience when you're performing, that it's not the same when you're online, and it's very up and down with social media. Cause sometimes you can post something that like is actually quite meaningful to you, and no one pays attention just because of the algorithm. It's not because it's not like a good post or it's not a good whatever. It's like sometimes people just don't see it. And then you're like, it creates this, even when you try to resist it, it's like this external validation machine.
Yeah, it's like if you took your friend aside and you were like, I've really been going through a hard time lately. Like, I just like really appreciate you being here with me. Like, while I'm going through my, if you like had this heartfelt conversation with a friend, you would get a completely different response than if you posted like a picture of you, like, holding a flower with that same caption. you know? It's like, it's just not the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's,
Yes.
it's I think marketed try to like fool thinking that it's the same thing or a similar thing,
Right.
even if we like know that it's not.
Yes.
Our lizard brain is like really searching for it.
Yeah, and especially at a time when we were looking for connection, and it's natural to want connection with other people. Like we're wired for that, and so our lizard brain got confused. I think for a while there, oh god, there were so many
I'm
posts.
this weird lizard. We all love our lizards.
They all love it. That's such a beautiful way of putting it. Because like oh God, who was I talking to? It was about like the Bo Burnham special about white women Instagram that like we all kind of turned into white women on Instagram where we're just like, look at the rainbow on my hand. I have
anxiety. Oh my God.
That is, yeah, it was a wild time looking back on it. And I think you're right that we do have a lot more coping skills now. And so it's up to us to be like, okay, well, what does it look like now? Like we kind of broke normal and that's okay. We've accepted that. Like, what do we want to do going forward? Like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think just because it's not like such a mystery anymore, like risk assessment seems more manageable, you know?
Exactly.
Because it's like, we know what it does, we know how it spreads, like we know what to do if we get it, like, you know.
Exactly. Exactly. Like it's become, and also I think that it's become kind of, I don't know how to put it other than like destigmatized. Like I feel like at the very beginning, people treated it almost like, and I hate that STIs are stigmatized as well. It's like, but people treated it like that. We're like, oh my God, did you hear that they got COVID?
Totally,
and now it's
totally.
more like, oh no, I'm so sorry. Did you want me to Postmates you some pho? Like, are you okay? Like, you know, it's like people are so much more accepting that now it's like, even if you do a good risk assessment, it's like sometimes it's just like inevitable if you were exposed to it and didn't know and things like that. That I think people are more compassionate now, which at least like, I mean, thankfully, like I personally haven't had it because I'm like a hermit anyway. But like, like I said, I went out once in like 2021. I was like, that's it, guys.
Yeah, I haven't gotten it either, knock on wood.
Right? I was
But,
like, out the table now. Yeah. And yeah, like right now, a few of my friends have it. I think at like the last few weeks, like, and all of my friends were vaccinated, but like, and thankfully it's been pretty mild, like for everyone who's gotten it, which I'm really grateful for. But I did notice kind of a change in how people perceive it, which is like, oh no, Lady Corona got you, instead of like, ew, what did you do? So
yeah, exactly. La Llorona. La Corona.
Yes. Oh my God. Oh my God. How have you been feeling, I guess, like creating during this time? And I know that so much of what you do is like you have all these beautiful visuals with the costumes that you make and everything. It's like, did you find that during this time you were inspired to make more because you had more time, or were you like, well, no one's seeing this right this second, so like I don't care? Like, what was that experience like?
So I love a tedious craft task. Um, so it was a fruitful time for that. And like knowing that I wasn't gonna put it out until this year, I was like kind of like fab because I mean, and not fab because of anything pandemic related, but like, you know, I was like, okay, I never have time before show. I'm always like rushing to like whip something together.
Yeah.
Let me just sit for months and like rhinestone these little like onesies or like hand knot a human hair wig, like just like do all of these like crazy things that I love doing but never get to do. um and I kind of just like wove that into like what the um like idea of the album was gonna be, because it was like, I don't know, the album was kind of, the songs were all written in the first month, and
Uh-huh.
like I made demos for all of them, and then slowly over 2020 I like fleshed everything out as I was doing the costumes, as I was you know, asking people to help me out with videos, like when things become slowly acceptable to like shoot a video with someone in a room, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um and so it just like, it did kind of like become this like, as I like gelled the album together, the visuals kind of like fleshed out, and I was like, you know, imagining what a live show would be like, what I would do during a live show. And so it was kind of like, um a strange gift to have.
Yeah, and what you're describing, it's so interesting that like we think about what normal is. Like that kind of in a way that was the norm for actually making an album, I would say in previous decades, where it was like you were supposed to actually take your time away in your cocoon making your album. And now people, at least like, leading up to 2020, I felt really rushed to be like, oh, you have to keep putting out singles every 6 to 8 weeks. And then that triggers the Spotify algo. And like, you have to keep putting out visuals and all this stuff where it's like, you actually had the time to just like sit and really consider your art. Like, and that's really valuable. I mean, it was because of a horrible incident. But like,
Yeah.
I think that I really hope that actually in the future we give ourselves and other people the space to do that.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to um, imagine a world where like that is prioritized because it is so like the like late stage capitalism like rush to like produce, consume. But I think that like maybe like that kind of taste of it where it was like, no, just in your house, just do it in your house. It's like maybe a silver lining from that is that people can see that like, oh, slowing down um is valuable.
Yeah. And that what you produce when you slow down, like it's kind of ironic, like that you said, like produce. But it's actually when you slow down that what you produce is actually of better quality. Like, like the way you were describing
Yeah.
right putting the onesies, and I'm like, oh my God, weaving an entire wig. I was like, damn, okay. It's like, because doing
Yeah.
production takes time, and even like that you demoed out the songs, then we're producing them and doing the visuals, like really putting the time into that. That means that what comes out is amazing, as opposed to just being like, oh yeah, this is like medium okay. I kind of rushed through it.
Yeah, I mean it's the same thing as if you like, try to type an email really fast and then it's like full of typos,
Yeah. Yes. I don't know if this is just like a me problem. I read my emails like 3 or 4 times before I send them just because I'm like, did I accidentally like say something completely different? Did I like
the way I stress out about email sending is psychotic. There was a period where I could not send an email without having my friend proofread. It was like, and I don't know what it is about email. I guess because it's like, it's more formal than a text,
yeah.
but it it's written out, so it's like I don't know. It's like it feels like very formal. It feels like I'm submitting a deposition or something. I don't know why.
Like whenever I send an email, I feel like I'm sending like a really official like telegram to someone that I'm just like, everything must be correct, because I'm like, what if I said like the wrong thing, and it's in the email record, which of course like text, you can look at someone's text record too, but it's like I don't know what is this affliction. Like,
I don't get it. I don't get it. I have gotten a little better, but it still stresses me out. It still stresses me out majorly.
oh my God, I wish that I had an intervention for that, but I'm like, same. Like, that's why
I need like email hypnosis or something. The way that they like get people to quit smoking via hypnosis. I'm like conquer my fear of emails.
oh my God, yeah, that's why I do them in like
Or like maybe like exposure therapy where I have to like write out like a bunch of emails.
yes, yes, like when I hear people be like, oh, I got to inbox zero, I'm like, I'm just excited when my inbox is in like the triple digits as opposed to like quadruple or more. Like,
Wait, let me actually check how many emails I have.
I'm like, now I'm curious.
Oh, do you want to guess?
Okay, I feel like I'm like guessing in like an invisible gumball journey where like you remember at the circus
Okay. it-
like jars.
yes. Okay, I will tell you it's in the thousands.
Okay, it's in the thousands. Am I allowed to ask clarifying questions?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Is it between 5 and 10,000?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Is it is it between 8,000?
Is it between what?
Is it between 6 and 8,000?
It is.
Amazing, amazing. Okay, okay. Um, I'm just gonna guess a random number. Is it 7,028?
Okay, no, but close. It's 6,391. Yikes.
Well, I did
Oh, and I have 275 unread text messages. I'm, ugh.
Oh my god. Yeah, I sent one of my group chats my lock screen, like I mean my home screen, just so they could see like the notifications. Cause sometimes like in the chat they'll be like, "Where'd you go?" And like I sent them my screen and one of them just was like, "This does not spark joy." Like why?
No, it sparks stress, honey.
Oh my god, I guess that goes back to like the whole like living one's life digitally, because that's the thing is like your option is either to always be on your phone or like I actually in some ways I don't know if you had this, but I kind of like I found that during the time alone, I just threw my phone into airplane mode more and more because I was enjoying doing whatever it was I was doing.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I need to start doing that a little more because now it's like, especially since I've been doing album promo a lot, it's like everyone knows that I'm on my phone all the time. So there's no real excuse to not answer any emails or text messages. So I need to actually just like throw it into airplane mode for have my like I need to have office hours with my phone is what I need to do.
Bingo. Yes, because like especially that's so interesting that people are like, oh, you're doing album promo, so like pay attention to me, and you're just like, wait, no, hold up, ah.
I know, because it's such a work instrument
Yes,
at times, you know?
yeah, and especially it's interesting doing album promo at this time, I would imagine as well, because like things are changing so fast, and it was like we're open. Oh, never mind. It's like you're like, no, I really need to define what like my boundaries are with this device and with whom I'm talking to and what I'm doing.
Totally, totally.
Oh my god, what is album promo like during this time? Obviously, we're chatting now, but I'm like, what do you get to do for it? Like, are you hopping on podcasts? Are you doing interviews? Like, what does it look like at this time? Because normally you'd be like going to radio stations and like playing shows. And...
So I am able to play shows a little bit. Like New York is you're in LA, right? New York is like at the point where it's like shows are still at full capacity, I believe, but they're all checking vaccine cards.
Yeah.
Um, and so I have some planned, but mostly it's been like phone interviews. I've had one in-person interview with someone who I like know a little bit. And then some Zoom stuff, but and then some podcast stuff. But yeah, that's kind of it. Um, so it's just like, yeah, I guess it's just like the modes have switched a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I talked to actually, it's funny. I discovered you because I talked to Shamir earlier. um,
Yeah.
which was amazing. We were talking about like their wardrobing stuff as well, which is interesting that you were talking about the rhinestoning, and I was just like, oh my gosh. I was like,
Yeah.
like I want everyone to see both of your styles because they're like just they're so good.
Oh my God, Shamir has the best fucking style. Like I always feel underdressed. Cause I'm like I have good like on stage or video clothes, but especially as I get into my 30s, like I used to dress like cool or weird like in the streets when I was in my early 20s,
Uh-huh.
and now as I get into my 30s I'm just like, I need leggings, I need like just a black camisole. Like, it's like I can't do it. I always look like a stagehand at like a school play now.
You're like, I'm a mime, it's fine.
Exactly.
Oh, that's
No, but your style is so fab.
oh my God, that is so funny. Yeah, like what you said about like kind of the slide into your 30s that I feel very similarly where like there's almost like especially now that we've kind of broken the rules about what you can even wear out of the house essentially. Um I have two modes and it's either that I'm basically wearing like a princess dress or I look like a garbage teenager. Like because I'm barely 5 feet tall. Those are like those are it's one or the other.
Okay, yeah, I actually I'm with you on that. Yeah, it is one or the other, totally. It's like some days it's like I had this thing sitting around forever. I just like need to wear it. Like, and then yeah, some days it's just like, well, what's the point?
Exactly. Because, like, I feel like on stage and off, like, how you're costuming yourself is like your self expression. And I think that's funny that you made the age differentiation as well. Because, like, during the time when you're in your 20s, that's such like a time of like identity formation. And then by the time you're in your 30s, you're like, cool, it's me. Yeah, still me.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's like I'm still wearing that on the inside, don't worry.
Sparkly on the inside. It's all good.
Yeah, yeah. I got my whole shirt on. I've got my like Jinko jeans, whatever, Doc Martens on the inside.
In a way that speaks to kind of like a security in yourself. And I was talking to a friend last night that he was so kind. Like I said, I was helping my friend's dog with anxiety, and she barked like all night. Like I got like at most maybe 2 hours of sleep, but it was like broken up into like half-hour chunks. Yeah, this dog was like vibrating on another plane of existence. Like they weren't having fun. I wasn't having fun. No one was having a good time. And then we like broke through to the other side and it was great. But like
Yeah.
I was exhausted. And my friend was like, do you want to just come over, like hang out in the hot tub, like just be chill? And I was like, okay. And he was saying something interesting because he's a bit older. He's like in his mid 50s and he's just like, yeah, he's like, you spend your 20s like kind of messing around being like, who am I? And then you spend your 30s being like, I'm so excited to be who I am. He's like, and then you spend your 40s being like, wow, I'm really effective at who I am. And then you spend your 50s being like, oh my God, I'm even more powerful and I can fly either over or under the radar. Oh my God. like, like like every day like you level up in like a different way. I was like,
Yeah, I have always just like been so excited to get older. I've never like craved to be young at all.
that's an interesting way to put it because I think that especially in our culture, like youth is almost fetishized in a weird way.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, definitely some things about having like a young body are enviable. Like I hurt a lot more.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't. I just can't like drink alcohol in the same way. Like it doesn't literally work. Like I either like don't get drunk or I get like wasted off of one glass of wine. I'm like, what is happening here? Like
We're aiming for.
yeah, totally. It's like I need to it's like, oh okay, I get like why old people are mellow, you know?
That's so true about like, that your body occasionally betrays you. Like I remember when I was younger being like, why does everyone have such like an irritable stomach? Like what's up with them? Like why aren't they eating like Del Taco in the middle of the night? Like do they just not like nachos? And now I'm just like, oh, I get it. I 100% get it. Mistakes have been made.
Yeah. It's like, okay, I've had sugar once this week. What, okay, how do I get around this like birthday party where I will be expected to eat a cake? Like, I'm like having to plan things out like that. I'm like, I don't want to get a headache like from this dairy. Like,
We're a little more fragile. Oh my god, exactly. That's like, for instance, if I were like 20 getting 2 hours of sleep, I would have been like, whatever, it's fine. Whereas like
oh,
I was like unwell. Like,
totally. Yeah, I used to go out until like 5 in the morning, sleep until 6:30, and then go to class. It's like, what the hell?
yes.
How is that possible?
What magic was that? Yeah, like the one night that I went out, I ended up same thing. And like the next day I woke up and I was like, I feel like I've been beaten by sticks. Like just someone was like threw me in a bag and was like beating me with sticks. And I was just like, I mean, I'm excited, but also ow.
Oh man, yeah, totally. It like yeah. I after my show that I played, I was like, did I break my foot? Because I was like wearing heels all night. I was like, what the hell happened? I was like, oh no, you just like went out. Like
Spit take. That was really funny.
I think I'm gonna have to go to the doctor.
Show up and they're like, no, you were just wearing heels.
Ma'am, you're 31. Go to sleep.
Oh my god. Yeah, and I hadn't even thought of that like footwear was really not a thing this year because like why would we have worn footwear? Like,
Yeah, yeah. I did weirdly buy a ton of shoes over quarantine because I think I realized that I was like I only because I was working at a bar up until the closing and I was like I only have like these Doc Martens with literal like 2 inch long holes in them and then like sneakers to run in
yep.
and then like I think one pair of like pretty broken like thigh high boots and so I was just extra $600 a week from the government. What do I do with it?
I like that you invested in quality footwear, though. That is definitely the only thing that came to mind. I was just like, that sounds like the disaster queer shoe assortment. That right there.
Uh-huh.
Like, and then we have the running shoes. We have the really fancy thigh highs that might fall apart, but boy, are they cool.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, so much. That paints an amazing picture.
Totally.
Oh my god. And see now you have footwear for when we are back in action and people can actually be like, oh hey, you're wearing shoes because we're outside.
Yeah, totally. Oh my God. Yeah. Oh, I did play one outdoor show too. Um, and I bought a pair of gold thigh-high boots
Ooh.
over the quarantine, which I was very excited about. But I rolled around on the ground on like concrete and I got up and I was like, God damn it, now they're all scuffed up. Oh my god, too eager, too eager.
One life of the gold thigh highs.
Yeah, the short and brilliant life.
I mean, that kind of speaks to like how excited you were to be out and about and playing a show again, though, because I'm just like, that's kind of really sweet. It's like, whatever, I'm rolling around, I'm excited.
Yeah, literally like a kid who like gets out to recess and then like scrapes their knee like immediately. Just
Oh,
oh.
oh, that's adorable. Oh my God. I guess like what comes next? Because it's like, I mean, you do have in some ways, it's like this liminal pandemic experience where we're not in full lockdown. We are still doing stuff, but in a way, you do have time to like work on your costumes, but now you also have time to like make videos of them because we can actually be inside safely in a like controlled setting. I'm like,
Yeah.
you already make all the videos for the album? Or are you still in process of doing stuff? Like, what are you up to?
So we made the first two. The second one just came out. It's called Rock and Roll Gay Guy. And those are the ones that we like focused on and like shot in like February and March of this year, I think, or maybe March and April.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so yeah, we have another single coming out. I have a song with Shamir coming out on August 25th, I think, called Punk Rock Boyfriend. And that one we haven't got a video for yet, but we are going to try to over the fall. Um, and yeah, I don't know. I would like to do some more of those like filmed performance things because I actually did get really into doing those over the pandemic, like doing them. I would like to not do them from my room though, do them from like a venue or something.
Good idea.
That would be a little upgrade. But yeah, I mean, touring seems maybe distant still.
Yeah.
Is like I've been on some like accidental tours where I just had a bunch of out of town dates that were like clumped together,
Right.
but I've never really been on like a full fledged tour. I would love to do that. And like uh Shamir obviously knows a lot about touring,
Yeah.
and so I'm like uh they want to like help me out with that too. But yeah, I mean, it's safety first. It's still kind of up in the air, and I guess we'll see where it goes. I don't know. I'm like starting to write new material again. Um, the like process for writing this album was like very like stream of consciousness, like quick writing process. So I would love to do something like that again if there's like another lockdown, or even if there's not. It's like I've that's something that I found out during this period is that I really like um, writing a lot in like a short period of time and then developing that over a long period of time. It kind of helps me like not get stuck on certain songs, you
Right.
know?
Right. It sounds like you don't get stuck kind of in your head, like you're kind of writing and then editing after and polishing after, but you're just like, okay, I want to get it all out first.
Exactly. Yeah, that was super helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. And that it's interesting that you framed it as like if we have another lockdown, then you're like, wait, or if we don't, and I was just like, I don't know how to put it other than we now have the power to throw ourselves into lockdown, whether there's a pandemic or not. We can just be like, peace out. I'm doing this thing. Bye. Like,
Kind of true. Yeah, totally. It's like, yeah. It doesn't have to be a national or international crisis to take a little time.
yeah, it's like we learned that it's like, oh, we can actually take that time and nothing bad happens to us because other bad things are happening, but not because we took the time. Like,
I mean, I know that you're a therapist, right?
yeah, yeah.
I feel like so many people over this time, whether it's through like actually going to therapy or just like kind of seeking out help from other people. It's like the kind of language of therapy has become a little more normalized throughout this period, and like treating each other with a little more just like um uh, patience, yes, but also like trying to understand your friends
Yeah.
and not let something just like hang in the air, but like investigate it, or be like, I don't actually have the space to go into this fully, but like just know that I'm going through this. It's like that seems to be a little more like common knowledge now. Do you agree with that?
I do agree. I'm really glad you brought that up, that it's like, I mean, people have been seeking out more mental health services. And I know that because like my business went from being me to like, I hired an associate early in 2020 being like, oh, I really want to train a baby therapist. Like that's part of, like being a therapist is you get to supervise others. And I was like, oh, I haven't done that yet. Like I'd love to do that. There's like 7 people on my staff now, like a year and a half later.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I was like, it was wild that it's like, because people kept seeking out services and like, there's only one of me. And so after a while, I was just like, whoa, Pam's tired, yo. Like,
Wow, that's cool.
thank you. Yeah, it was like I kept like hiring more and more people and like looking for people that I specifically work with, people in like the ethical non-monogamy community and the queer communities. And it's like, so a lot of people in like underserved communities. And so those were the people who kept being like, hey, I heard about you from one of my friends. I want to come see you because I know that I'm not going to have to explain all this stuff to you and you're not going to like stigmatize it. You're just going to deal with what I'm actually dealing with, which is usually like something completely unrelated. like,
Yeah,
like I have horrible
no.
pandemic anxiety, or I went through a bad breakup, or like, whatever is going on. And so that's how my practice grew. But I noticed like more and more, like people are normalizing therapy and people are normalizing talking about relating to one another the same way we do in therapy. Like you just said, where it's like
No.
being really respectful of other people's stuff as well as their boundaries, and knowing that it's not about you, like either saying like, yeah, totally, I have space to talk about this, let's have this conversation now, or being like, I've had a day, I really want to help you out,
Yeah.
I'm going to take a nap, and then how about if I text you after so that way I can really attend to what you're saying. Like where it's like
Yes.
are able to,
Yes.
yes, I think because we were all unwell together, we have more empathy for it.
Yep, and it's way better than just like kind of like trying to like grin and bear it, but just being like a really horrible friend, which is kind of what I felt like I did a lot before.
Oh, well, yeah, and I think like we're not taught these skills, and like they're just kind of
Yeah,
they're swept to the side, and they are skills. It's not something that like we come to. It's not that it's unnatural, but it's not necessarily intuitive to know how to talk about things this way. But if someone teaches you how to talk about things that way, you're like, oh, cool, now I have the tools to do that.
absolutely. Yeah, and it's so helpful, like everywhere. Like no matter who you're dealing with, whether it's a friend, whether it's the DMV, like um I I've had a lot of like gender affirming surgeries over the past couple of years. And that was like one of my in my life, like one of my great like in the video game when you move to the next level, it's like I earned like 20 points of patience, is like dealing with like medical people like over the phone. Is like I had to just like be like, okay, like we're gonna do this. It might not happen today. It might not even happen this week. We're just gonna keep doing it, and we're gonna be on the phone with these people, and they don't want to deny you of anything. They're just doing their job. So remind them of something if you know different, but like don't get mad. Like, it's like
I think that so many people who either like aren't trans or don't counsel people who are trans like don't understand how labyrinthine the path of medical transition can be, and how like we put the burden on people who are transitioning to go through that.
Yeah.
Instead of like having a better system, it's like the way you described it is a video game almost, and like you level up with patience each time. It's like, couldn't we design a better video game for this? This is a really crappy video game.
Yeah, this video game sucks.
Play it. Can I have another one?
Yeah, totally. And I mean, I live in New York City, which, like, I mean, thank God I've gotten all of my surgeries for free, like, up from New York City Medicaid. Like, it honestly is probably one of the best places in the world to navigate trans surgeries, but it's still super hard. And it's like, even like thinking about how hard that must be anywhere else, um, is like, fries my brain, like makes me want to die.
Pretty much. It's a deeply frustrating experience. And like you said, that it's like a lot of the people, I mean, the best that I always counsel people to look for is literally people who are just neutral. And that makes me kind of sad that I can't even be like, hope for people who are kind and understanding. It's like, hope for people who are neutral within the system and aren't terrible to you.
Are actively trying to sabotage you.
like I'm like, the bar is so low.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, same thing goes with like so many like healthcare barriers though. It's like it seems like yeah, you said labyrinthine. It's just like they purposely make it really difficult to access almost anything.
Oh my God. Seriously. I experienced that frustration as an individual, then also as a therapist, where even like I submit like super bills for my clients that do have insurance, because then they get partial reimbursement for like my practice's services. And I kid you not, like there was this one insurance agency that like I submitted the super bill, like my client did, so they could get money back. This insurance agency called me because they were like, but you didn't put the right code on the diagnosis. And I was like, oh, I put the DSM code. They're like, oh, okay, we need the IDC code. And I was like, okay. And they were like, yeah, for this one, the IDC number is blah, blah. And I was like, cool. And they were like, so you need to send us another bill that has that IDC code on it. I was like, but you literally just said the code, the code. They were like, no, we don't, because we don't diagnose. I was like, you just said it.
No. Oh my God, yeah, I had one surgery over the pandemic and it was so like heart pounding trying to get it completed, because literally in the past I have had to take and like physically run them to other offices and like show up places and just wait for hours, and I'm like, this is how I get things done. And so during the pandemic it was like, you just have to like block out twice or more the amount of time, because it's all on the phone, and everyone on the phone is pretty much like displaced to their own home, so it's like they can't even check within their own office, like going,
Oh my God. I'm like, kudos to you for that is oh my God. And I know several people who have transitioned during the pandemic, and a lot of people that discovered aspects of their identity that they hadn't before, because of like either being perceived by others and having that taken away during the circumstance, or feeling pressured to be a certain way that then when you're all by yourself, you don't feel that pressure. And so it's like, I had a lot of clients and friends even who were like, oh wow, like I discovered like I'm actually this gender. Oh wow, I discovered my sexuality is actually totally different than I thought it was, because now I'm not actually being pressured by other people.
Yeah, staring into the void. You're just like, what's out there, really?
Exactly. Like I know a lot of people who have been like, surprise, I'm actually non-binary. Like,
That's fab. Yeah, I mean, it's like, I think, a cliche at this point that like a lot of trans people are like really into like online video games or like coding or like those industries, because like, you know, with self-reflection comes having a lot of time alone, comes a lot of self-reflection, and you like get to these places that you don't necessarily if you're being like pushed and pulled with you know, social cues or whatever. So it's like to have that kind of as a widespread thing was probably really good for some people.
I was gonna say, that's so interesting that you bring that up because I had noticed a correlation. And like, it's so funny that you had pointed out me being a therapist because I'm like, having studied that, correlation is not causation. That is always when people are like, does this make this other thing happen? It's like, no, that's a correlation. They seem to have some relationship, but we don't know what it is yet. Like, but I love that it's like that relationship might be because, like you said, like the self-reflection, the time alone, the time that you're concentrating on something, not with others. It's like,
Mhm.
because yeah, I do know an unusual number now that I actually think about it. I'm like, oh, I do know a lot of my friends who are trans are in video games and in coding.
Yeah, it's just sound design, research, like you know, all of these industries.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that is I now I'm just like, oh, wow. I looked like that meme where it's like the woman calculating everything. Where I just like, oh.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and it's like I'm looking forward to seeing like how this shift in people's identities over the course of this, what it looks like in coming years. I mean, obviously there's a huge amount of trauma that we're still processing and that is like still ongoing, but there's so much like positive identity exploration that I'm like, I'm so curious, like what's gonna happen in the next few years, like who we're gonna be.
Yeah, and I think that like I mean, um the trauma might be like part of this too, but like I feel like it like I don't know. I think about like putting up with so much at my job at the bar, like putting up with being treated like shit, like by customers or like, you know, just like trying to get through. Um, Hopefully, maybe a silver lining can be that like we don't like like certain things are like non-negotiable, you know,
Yes.
because we've like given ourselves or we've been forced to have space to um like become accustomed to certain aspects of ourself or like certain standards, you know.
But like I noticed at that party and at the other few that I went to, people were so respectful of personal space in a way that they hadn't before. And
Yeah.
I'm very small, and so people tend to sometimes be in my space anyway. But like I noticed, also like, being perceived female in public spaces, people tend to touch me a lot. They're like, oh, a small female, touchy touchy. And I'm just like, no touchy, no. Like, and coming
Yeah.
out of this, people have been so much less like that. Like people have asked me like, oh, would you like a hug, or are you a hugger, or like, oh, can I sit next to you? Like people are using their words in a different way in regards to personal space that I was like, oh, this is the world I've always wanted. Oh, bless, this is so good.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's kind of a trip. Yeah, or like even like on the subway here, it's like people, not always, but I have especially like up until a certain point, it's like people were like leaving space between each other on the subway in a way that I'm like, if it was 2018, like someone would be like sliding in sideways to try to get this like 1 inch space between me and this like 80-year-old person, you know? Just
Ah,
like leaning.
I do remember that about the subways in New York, that like I was just like, wow, I don't even have to hold on to anything. It's like I'm crowd surfing. Cool.
Yeah, like a pencil in a box. Like
Exactly. Yeah.
Totally.
I feel like there are things that like should have been non-negotiable before that like now really are that like we're more,
Yeah.
hopefully in a way like more respectful of each other and more observant of like, hey, is this other person comfortable? Like what can I do to help them out? Like,
Right. Right. Totally.
oh, you've been so generous with your time. I really appreciate you chatting with me.
Oh my God. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you again for listening to this episode of Why Not Both. If you liked what you heard, please make sure to like us and subscribe to us on your preferred podcast platform. You can also come hang out with us on social media. We are at WNB the podcast, both on Instagram and on Twitter. This season, we are brought to you by Under the Radar magazine. Under the Radar is a nationally distributed print, music, and entertainment magazine and website. You can find them at www.undertheradarmag.com and feel free to support them on Patreon. Extra special thanks to our producer, Laura Studeris, who is literally a rock star. Thanks again, and I look forward to seeing you next episode.